It's time again for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.
Hi, I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
So, Scott, in the fall election here in the Assembly, which is, I think, the one that Republicans hope that they have the best chance to hold on to versus the governor's office or the state Senate, the big question here is, okay, they got to take 5 seats. And the top 5 most vulnerable seats, where we're at, as I understand it, is we've got 2 people retiring, Calvert and Rodriguez, but the other 3 are there. Give me your take on what that looks like and how you feel that portends for Republicans for the fall election.
Well, you know, in this sort of environment where you're in the midterm election, second midterm election of a presidency, the winds are blowing in the Democrats' favor. The people most likely to survive those sort of winds are incumbents who have already built an independent brand and have built relationships with people in their district over the years. So having 2 Republican incumbents step aside does make it harder. But Tyler August was right, the majority leader in the state assembly and the guy who's leading the campaigns for the Republicans in that chamber this fall, when he said that the math still favors Republicans in the state assembly. It's gotten closer. There's no doubt about that. But essentially, you need 50 seats to win and control the chamber, right? So 46 seats are safe Republican districts. 3 are lean Republican districts, and they have good incumbents in all of those places. So an incumbent should do better than the top of the ticket. They should be able to hang on to those. So now they only need to win 1 of the 5 seats that voted for Kamala Harris that are presently held by a Republican member of the state assembly. It got harder with 2 incumbents stepping aside, but you've got 3 other incumbents there. Just one of those incumbents needs to make it through, whether it's Todd Novak or Ben Franklin or Donovan in the Milwaukee area. Any one of those 3 people make it through, the Republicans should continue to control the state assembly. So I think the odds still favor them, but the odds have gotten a little better for the Democrats.
Well, there are a number. Scott says some things that are accurate. Then there are some things that maybe not so much. He says there are winds blowing for the Democrats. There's not just a wind. There's a hurricane out there that's blowing for the Democrats. Number 2, remember what we're talking about here. We're talking about we're comparing against a presidential election where the Democrats didn't have a very strong candidate in Kamala Harris, and she was very much tied to Joe Biden and refused to distance herself from Joe Biden. So if you start with that base, I mean, Democrats, if they just won the Kamala Harris seats, which I think should be a baseline in a year where the wind is heavily blowing in their favor, that's a baseline. But then we've got the rest of it. Well, okay, we've got 2 of the incumbents gone out of the 5 most vulnerable, but the other 3 have got problems. Not only what I just talked about, but in addition to that, you've got the fact that you've got a gubernatorial turnout this year versus presidential. That used to be the kind of year that Republicans felt was great. Lower turnout, that's our people, they show up. That has flipped on its head. Now the gubernatorial turnout is much more in favor of the Democrats. So that is why the Assembly Democrats have expanded the base that they're looking at, the targeted people that they want to go against, targeted seats, I should say, of Republicans. They've increased that from 8 up to significantly more. That is really a scary proposition for Republicans because Democrats are now thinking, we don't want to go too far, but we're going to expand the opportunities so that we can get even more. And I agree with Scott. The maps could have been drawn much more favorably to the Democrats. Governor Evers drew I would say, a map that slightly leans Republican, but not in this year, not in a gubernatorial year. Not when you've got the winds blowing as strongly as they are, and not when you're going to have a strong Democratic candidate for governor and a Republican who comes from an area that doesn't really have any of the vulnerable seats in it. Tom Tiffany is going to have a really hard time playing in the suburbs of Milwaukee, and that's why Republicans are going to have a hard time even as you go down the ballot. And remember, as the farther you go down the ballot, the less people know the individual that you're dealing with, and the more they know about the party overall. Now, Ben Franklin, I have to admit, even I will be a little disappointed when Ben Franklin will leave the Wisconsin legislature. It just seems like Ben's reincarnation should hang around. But Ben, I'm sorry, but we've just got to have a Democratic majority, and it can't be this time.
Well, you mentioned the gubernatorial election, and that's something unusual about this fall's elections in that the top of the ticket is the governor's race. There is no race for the United States Senate here. There's no race for president in Wisconsin. So the race that will be at the top of the ticket and will be dominating all the advertising that's going on here in the state will be the race for governor. And I think in the race for governor, the Democrats are doing us a big favor at the moment, in that their top two candidates are the candidates who are farthest to the left, Francesca Hong and Mandela Barnes. And they are running on things that will not win a general electorate in the fall. Now, maybe they're not the nominees in the end, but right now things are looking pretty good. Tripling Wisconsin's income tax rate is unlikely to be a big winner in the fall, despite Francesca Hong's favoring it. Legalizing prostitution, also not likely to be a winner here in the fall in Wisconsin. So I think it is going to be valuable to the Republicans to have one of those crazies at the top of the ticket. And these folks will be offering, I think, a moderate and reasonable platform about affordability and property tax relief. So I continue to believe the Republicans can squeak by here in the state assembly. The odds are getting tighter, but I still think they're going to win.
Scott's analysis, if you look at it, he's really good at this, folks. And you notice what he's hanging his hat on is that the Democrats are going to nominate Francesca Hong or Mandela Barnes. And I think there are a lot of Democrats who would say that that's probably not going to happen. And certainly, it's not going to be a campaign where they're going to be touting some of these issues that Scott has brought up. If that is what the Republicans are banking on for this year, I would say they are whistling past the graveyard. This is going to be a good year for Democrats, and the trifecta is on the way. And frankly, I think the question is going to be, okay, by what margin? Is the 25th Senate district up north going to be in play? And could that possibly go Democratic? Could Democrats in the Assembly have not only a 1-vote margin, but could they have a 3 or 5-vote margin? Those are the issues that I think we're going to be talking about by the time we get to September of this year. And we'll see. Scott and I will be back to give you our thoughts at that time. But I am happy that the race is going the way it is, and I think it's going very well for Democrats. And the Assembly looks like it's headed for a majority of more than one. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to The Insider with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.